What's going on, guys? Day blah blah blah. I forget this every time. Oh shit. Day 8 of diving deeper. I'm gonna go over my trades. We're gonna go over what I've been focusing as of lately on the charts. That has been the Google short focus. All right, so bear with me here. I'm definitely some beers deep, but I want to talk about this one real quick just because we had our earnings candle, and then our earnings candle led to a small premature phase of distribution and a quick sell, and then we kind of filled a decent amount of the gap. And then from there, we got higher low, and then obviously expansion. This was the false breakdown candle that was obviously price facilitating downwards off of news and then reaccumulated off that news. And then, as you guys can see, we kind of got like a declining volume move higher past the earnings candle, and then we started getting these really strong sell side spreads. And whenever I look at this and then I see three inside bars after subsequently that are all lower volume, I'm looking to short this. I shorted this over here, and then obviously it pushed back down into the reaccumulation zone for like some sort of higher low. If you want to look at it from like trend line perspective, it makes sense. I mean, obviously this body was a gap down, and then obviously a recovery off that gap. But if you look at this from like the hourly perspective, it kind of makes sense over here. So this was kind of just like a failure of, I mean, it is a higher low. That's why I don't really like trend lines, but higher low, or I'm sorry, higher low, higher low, higher low. This was all just a test also of the golden pocket. Whenever you pull fibs from low to high, that's the golden pocket. I remember that off the top of my head just because that was my target on the last short. Very beautiful target, also a higher low. Also this little bear gap progression that's being claimed and rebid off that spot. So very clean spot to execute the short from there. And then I look to re-short this thing. I short it back within this resistance. We had a little gap here that was being protected with a strong seller's ask. And then obviously once we broke through that and then failed that previous all-time high, what did my tweet talk about? Distribution happens at highs, guys. So whenever I was looking at this chart, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. We got the pop off the open, and then that pop stalled. Then we got the breakdown candle. I shorted the breakdown candle. This higher low should hold. So when I'm thinking about this live, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, clean breakout on a gap up, a lot of volume behind it. Then we start stalling with an inside bar on the 5. And then we start selling, and then we find diminishing volume kind of push back into the retest of this previous all-time high. And then when that happened and we got another sell, I started seeing a buyer kind of bailing, a seller kind of really stepping in over here. And then there was really no buyer making any sort of effort on bids being filled in larger quantities. So that's a lot of effort, but no result. Whenever I saw that in the tape, and then I also saw kind of like this higher low kind of giving up and not being respected, is whenever I started looking short, risking this high. So I shorted whenever it was on the 1. I don't really like executing on the 1, but whenever I saw this lower high and started to see the breakdown over here, I caught like into this candle because I figured the 5 minute, as long as the ask stayed strong and the buyers were kind of like disappearing from that spot or being absorbed, or there's just no effort from any sort of large quantity of bids being filled, was the area in which like I was like really looking for obviously sell side structure to develop from. So I grabbed the previous higher low attempt in the opening print, and that was kind of like my risk tolerance whenever I got the breakdown and the retest. So I suffered a little bit of, like, I was green and then went a little bit almost back to break even, and then I held this and I said, you know what, I'm targeting the overnight gap. I scaled half position over here and then scaled more into sell side strength as we pushed our way down, kind of just in the midst of nowhere. And then I started following candles, candle spreads, everything like that. And all this really was, guys, was previous day low to the current day high was the 618, and that was like a very clean spot to start scaling because I was thinking to myself in real time, guys, this is a gap up that's filling the overnight gap. That's a lot of progression to cover from the sell side perspective. And we have FOMC today, so I'm not really looking for a full and out reversal. What I'm more or less looking for is prices stay stagnant into the meeting itself, and then obviously this was where the first support was kind of established from, was like this previous resistance turning into a support. So it was a little bit ballsy to only scale half here. I'm not gonna lie. I probably should have just took full profit down here. And I mean, I just really liked how the tape was looking in the current time, and then we got this really low volume pushback higher, and then I was looking yet again for another staircase down. We never broke back above this spot. We kind of just got another lower high, and then we sold even further. So that was a very clean sell side trade. It was distribution happening ever since earnings, and whenever you're looking at this chart from the daily perspective, you could say, oh my gosh, okay. Well, we pushed low to high, filled into the golden pocket, found a hammer candle off of it. This was also kind of a higher low protecting this news candle where it gapped down, reaccumulated the bearish news, and then pushed its way higher. All probably just to push back lower, rewash off, like I said, a draw to the high volume spot, or for developing buy side structure from down here. And then once we started getting this pop, it started looking relatively weak, little to no consolidation. We started getting a strong sell side spread, and then we got a slow climb higher that started to fail the price discovery. And if you think about it, it's distribution is really probable on all-time high failures. Um, and then obviously accumulation is really probable whenever you see like new lows being broken with a previous sequence that looks like distribution is happening before that new lows being created. So vice flip it from that to highs being sold and then a new high being failed. And this was all a new high and a break from the CPI, right? So if this does fail, I do expect this to pull back down. If you want to look at moving averages, you can. This was kind of where the 9 EMA was also at towards that low. This was also, if you pull up a volume shelf from just this, cut out the earnings candle, just look at the current range that we're trading at. This is volume point of control at the spot, right? So that could have been a little bit different during live trading day. But whenever you have a winner on your hands on an FOMC day, you kind of just want to scale that profit and realize a win. Schwab was also another short, and I want to talk about this for a couple reasons. I'm going to go into my little, I'm going to go into my videos here right now and show you guys something. Because if you're keeping up with the videos, you're going to be able to see trade opportunities presenting themselves more often. And it
Here we are.
is day six of diving deeper. So this is kind of what I was looking at live throughout the day. I had all these tickers on focus. If you want to take a look at this little window over here, this is what I had on focus. It was
So you guys
one
can
phase
see the
energy.
levels that I had marked out over here. This was above the current swing high into the dominant volume patterns on the sell side.
This was more or less of a long side focus for me. This is the zone that I've had out from the earnings candle all the
And
way to
you
this
guys can
external
see how I
high.
had that level above that.
So that's just kind of what I was looking at for over there.
And then so whenever I'm looking at this and I see this dominant seller patterns coming in off like this top over here, JPM was also another weak financial that I said I was looking for a downside continuation off of. This is a very ugly candle. And you could see how it was kind of protecting this sell side move, and then it started to fail the previous all-time high, find the lower highs off of it, and then we got this 2-day sell of about 4%. Okay, so this is what I said right in the video live.
That's not really what I was looking for. Sometimes but it moved high. Looking at what the retests were, we did retest equilibrium. So anything that would have moved higher, I would have liked to execute it above this high.
Did you guys hear that? I would like to execute above that high, just scaling into strength on the largest financial name. And then this was also, like I said, kind of offering the same similar structure with really strong sell side moves. And then obviously as we move our way higher, it's back into, like I said, this little bear gap over here and above this high and a failure off that high. If you go to the 15, what I was looking at, the 15 is very important sometimes, guys. It's more sometimes whenever you're so zoned in on a 5, you see the little closes above and it scares you out. But we saw a really heavier volume sell candle off that spot, right? And that was above this swing high. And then obviously the consolidation started to die out on volume. And then we started to get the bleed right after. So whenever I saw this close and then open and then start selling hard right over here, that's whenever I started to take the position. And I was on biweeklies and weeklies over here, risking this high. And then I scaled the bi-weeklies a little bit lower into the meeting. I wasn't planning on holding into the meeting. I just looked for the lower high. We found the lower high. The weeklies I scaled down here because they were up a little bit more, and then the weeklies down into this candle down here into the FOMCs where I scaled that for a 90% win. So it's just playing with the daily chart. Uh, Not really much over there. And I still have a little bit to this position. So I'm looking for this to now fail this little higher low trend line. Go back to the daily. You could take a look at this and say, okay, we're at the moving averages. What I'm looking for now, I don't even know what this level is over here, but what I'm looking for is probably a retest of this level or a fill of this little mini gap down here or beneath this low. I'm going to use that as the trailing now. So those are the two positions, and then I just took some end phase off the open and then towards the bottoms. I had end phase from last night, got to break even up here, or no, I'm sorry, not break even, green, because I added up here just as a small lotto, wasn't really expecting much, and then obviously as I started to see this little sell climax start to play out on these lower lows being bought into a retest of this high over here is whenever I started to add more, and then I went green again because I had some ads from over here on the weeklies that I held, and then we got the really nice gap up. I was up like 150%, but it wasn't enough. It sounds bad, but I was looking for expansion above this resistance. I never got it, and then I kind of just mitigated the trade back to break even. On an FOMC day, it's totally okay. And I believe that was it. I had a McDonald's long, but it was kind of just a wash over there on that trade. It was this. So I added down here off of this little resistance turning into a support. We got, this was like a little order block where you start closing candles beneath a previous low and then it fails, breaks back above, and then retests and hold. I was looking at McDonald's longs all day, but I couldn't catch the wick. And then I forgot to catch the higher low right over here. It was actually a really nice higher low to fill off of. I didn't really see a really nice risk level, but I executed over here and then I stopped over here. That's not really anything crazy. And then I repurchased and then stopped because I had other positions winning at the time, Google and Schwab. So yeah, that was basically the only trades. I was planning on taking Tesla, but we swiped the low, the external low from this super long, tight range. And then we started to find a buyer and a base into that close. And then we ripped the next following day. That was my plan on Tesla the whole entire time. We do have an investor meeting on tomorrow, actually. So ideally, I would like this to see us sell one more time and then potentially repurchase a little bit lower because that's just kind of how big money trades into events. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that was basically just the overall trading day. So Schwab and Confluence and similar structure to JPM. And then we had, because I didn't catch JPM unfortunately, and then we had the Google short that I've been planning for a very long time. And that was a new high where Obviously, institutions are looking to distribute and recollect that inventory a little bit lower at a cheaper price. And if there isn't a willing buyer up here off of a retest, likely this is going to sell and rebalance into the chart back down at resistance, turn support levels, back into overnight gaps, stuff like that. So, yeah, that was basically the trading day. Two trades, two wins, and then the rest were just overall a wash. Maybe like a puny loss on the other two. Nothing too serious. It was worth the attempts, but it was FOMC, so I didn't have any crazy expectations. You can never have any crazy expectations with it. And it was just really respecting the targets, really nice targets. So yeah, I mean, you could take a look at the opening print of this bull gap that was kind of created over here, and you could say, okay, yeah, they're probably going to rebid this off that spot, which was the most recent kind of move being made, and like also tying in with this close over here. And this technically never closed the overnight gap. So I looked for the lower high. Fortunately, I found the lower high, and then I scaled, like I said, more into the sell side shrink that we did find. So that was the trading day for me. And yep,